Good evening, everybody. Last time we had covered Book 1, Canto 1, but we'll go back a little just to take an overview of the book and a brief overview of Canto 1 before we go on to the next canto. The mother has described Savitri as the revelation of the Supreme. It is a revelation, and revelations come from a region far above the thinking mind. Revelations are not subject to analysis of the mind. They are not subject to analysis and debates and discussions. Revelations are to be received and grown into. The more our mind is open to the truth of the revelation, through a sense of surrender, the more the mind begins to receive the light and consciousness and truth and beauty and ananda and sweetness and joy that Savitri is. And the more it begins to be molded into that substance which Aurobindo has poured in the form of a body of words and sound symbols. What really is this revelation? There have been revelations and revelations and revelations. There have been revelations by the ancient seers that there is one reality behind this universe, and all these dividing appearances, all this you and me and this and that are appearances, they are masks. As Savitri would put it, all here that seems to be its lonely self are figures of the soul transcendent one. All here that seems to be its lonely self are figures of the soul transcendent one. This is a revelation we find in the Vedas, Ekameva Dvityam, the one without a second. There are other revelations, revelations of the path that leads us to the one. The Vedas speak of the ascent of man through sacrifice, and he ascends from the world of mortality, from this sphere of death and suffering and sorrow and bitterness and struggle, to the plane of immortality, to the plane of truth and light and the right, Ritchit, to the plane of truth that is also the vast, Satyam Ritam Rahatam. There have been revelations following this, and various paths and bypaths and sublanes and terrains have been spoken of by various seers down the centuries. What else is there which is yet to be revealed? What is left out? We know that there are truths beyond the earth. We know that beyond the truths beyond the earth, there is one truth which holds them all. And we know the path to that truth as given to us by the great seers. What is yet left to be revealed? And here Aurobindo brings an entirely new revelation, which is like a reversal of things. And this revelation is the relation that beyond has with the earth. It is not just a question of moving from the plane of earth to the beyond, but how that beyond has brought this earth into existence, nurtures it, nourishes it, descends into it, and eventually has a great plan for it. And in this great plan, we all can participate. Participate we must, and participate we would, even if we are not willing, because that is the great yagna of earth. How does earth do this yagna? In Savitri it's very beautifully mentioned. The offering, the sacrifice of suffering and desire that earth offers to the inviolable ecstasy. there are two kinds of yagna that are done on earth. One, in that offering, we put suffering. This is an unconscious or a subconscious yagya. We go through life, we get things, and then they are taken away from us. And when they are taken away, there is a pang in the heart. There is a trouble, there is a sorrow. And when there is a trouble and the sorrow, it is as if offered into a great purifying flame. And we grow through that. This is a subconscious yagya that goes on in the earth. But there is a conscious yagna that can take place. The offering, the sacrifice of desire. This is the great yagna going on this earth. And here Sri Aurobindo reveals the whole significance and purpose of writing something like Savitri. This is a letter of Sri Aurobindo. My own life and my yoga have always been, since my coming to India, both this worldly and otherworldly, without any exclusiveness on either side. The revelations of the past were great, but over a time they created a kind of schism, a division between this world and otherworldliness. So much so that if somebody was moving in the field of human activity, he was regarded as someone who was lost to anything divine. The mark of anyone seeking divinity was the garb of the ascetic, the robe of the sannyasin. He must withdraw into a cave, into a monastery, somewhere far from the world. He must look dreamy. He must sit and meditate for hours. We should not take any account of the rest of his life. So much so that even today, even many of us make this great mistake when someone is asked, "Oh, you are doing yoga in an ashram. How many hours do you meditate?" And if you were to say that no, we don't have any fixed time for meditation, some of us never really sit for meditation, then it sounds very strange. What kind of yoga is this? So here Sri Aurobindo tells us, all human interests are, I suppose, this worldly, and most of them have entered into my mental field. All human interests. And some, like politics, into my life. It's good Sri Aurobindo has mentioned the word politics, because it is truly comes under the category of what would be described as ghor karma. Even a karma of that kind enters into his life and not just in the sphere of mind. But at the same time, since I set foot on the Indian soil on the Apollo Bandar in Bombay, I began to have spiritual experiences. But these were not divorced from this world, but had an inner and infinite bearing on it. So one may say, yes, there is this life, one has to live this life, lead this life, but only as a preparation for the beyond. This is one kind of concept where one says that, well, this world has a value, but only as a pedestal by which we can catapult or launch ourselves into some heaven of bliss or joy or peace. But here is Sri Aurobindo telling us that these worlds, this beyond, had an infinite and an inner bearing on it. They were changing the very material perception of things. They were changing matter. They were changing the very life which he was leading. Such as a feeling of the infinite pervading material space. He would write a very beautiful poem on this experience much later. The infinite pervading material space, the experience which he had at Takht-e-Suleiman in Kashmir, and the immanent inhabiting material objects and bodies. Much later, Sri Aurobindo would write in one of his poems, the electron. Could a yogi write on on a subject so mundane, so infinitesimally small as an electron. Here is someone who is moving in the realms of the infinite and takes the pain and the interest to write on something which is so infinitesimal, a smallest particle of dust, a grain of matter. And here he writes on the electron, and what does he see? He does not see it as a vanity of vanities, as an illusion created by some kind of Maya. He sees in the electron the abode in which Shiva in his fiery chariot rides. This is the divine vision of the electron. This is how he would see material objects and material space and matter itself. Who is hid in matter is none else but the infinite. He is hidden in the infinitesimal, and thereby perhaps, and therefore perhaps, homeopathy can have a good effect, because infinitesimal contains within itself the infinite. At the same time, I found myself entering supraphysical worlds and planes with influences and an effect from them upon the material plane. So, I could make no sharp divorce or irreconcilable opposition between what I have called the two ends of existence and all that lies between them. The supraphysical influences on the physical. He could see behind the phenomenon of an Hitler the influence of a dark supraphysical world, of a dark entity. He could see behind the persona of a cat the fur-footed Brahman, and could write these words, whether she is a spirit, a woman, or a cat, this is the mystery I am wondering at. For me, all is Brahman, and I find the divine everywhere. It's a very beautiful story of Dara meeting Aurobindo. We know that he came from the princely state of Hyderabad, and his original name was something else, and mother called him Dara. And he told mother, my name is not this. Mother says, yes, I know, but you are Dara. He was Dara during the time of Aurangzeb. And he goes to Aurobindo, and Aurobindo asks him a question which may sound strange. He didn't ask him, how much do you meditate, and what are your religious faiths and beliefs. He asks him, have you seen the sea? How do you find it? And he says, the sea is indeed beautiful. And then he happened to ask a question as if inspired by a paradox within himself, by a division within himself. Is the divine there in the sea? And it is reported that Aurobindo had placed his foot on a stool, low stool. He lifted the foot a little, and with a little firmness, placing it on the stool, he said, yes, he is everywhere. And Dara had a vision of the divine everywhere. Who could do this? He who had seen the divine in all things, in every particle. Mother would affirm this experience in her own way, in the prayers and meditation, where she would say, living in the heart of each atom, I kindle therein the fire that never burns out. That is the significance of matter, which we had to learn from science. But here is Aurobindo telling us that matter is not just matter, it is Brahman crystallized. It is the spirit that has concretized itself and become matter. For me, all is Brahman, and I find the divine everywhere. And then he says, everyone has the right to throw away this worldliness and choose other worldliness only. And if he finds peace by that choice, he is greatly blessed. I, personally, have not found it necessary to do this in order to have peace. We don't have to retreat. We have so many retreats to find peace. And Aurobindo is telling us we don't have to retreat. We can find him there in the heart of the battle, for he strikes in the spheres and he wars for the world and its ultimate years. He is there in the battle, in the chariot, in the trumpet sounds. He is woven in the stars. He blooms in the rose. He hides in the laughter of man. He is shown in the beauty of woman. This is what Aurobindo would reveal to us. In my yoga also I found myself moved to include both worlds in my purview, the spiritual and the material, and to try to establish the divine consciousness and the divine power in men's hearts and earthly life, not for a personal salvation only, but for a life divine here. It is possible only if matter holds in itself the possibility of divinization. If that possibility is not there, it would be idle to use the word divine life. Because nowadays, after Aurobindo has brought words like divine life and integral yoga, they are becoming transformation, they are becoming commonplace, because these words are catching the mind of the race, the imagination of us humanity, and they are being used. But how can we speak of divinization unless we say that matter too is in some way which escapes our understanding and vision, in some way divine? This comes to me as spiritual an aim as any, and the fact of this life taking up earthly pursuits and earthly things into its scope cannot, I believe, tarnish its spirituality or alter its Indian character. So the pursuits that we take in life, the human pursuits, field of education, sports, even politics, science, arts, painting, and the whole ashram is a very beautiful replica of that. This is what she creates here. Everything is at once this worldly and otherworldly, depending upon the plane of consciousness with which we are in contact when we made it, when that was created, depending upon the purification and the perfection of the instrumentality through which this manifests. This at least has always been my view and experience of the reality and nature of the world and things and the divine. It seemed to me as nearly as possible the integral truth about them, and I have therefore spoken of the pursuit of it as the integral yoga. My yoga can include indeed a full experience of the other worlds, the plane of the Supreme Spirit, and the other planes in between, and their possible effects upon our life and the material world. But it will be quite possible to insist only on the realization of the Supreme Being or Ishvara, even in one aspect, Shiva, Krishna, as Lord of the world and Master of ourselves and our works, or else the universal Satchidananda, and attain to the essential results of this yoga, and afterwards to proceed from them to the integral results if one accepted the ideal of the divine life and this material world conquered by the spirit. We find this in the legend in the Puranas, where we find that the darkness embodied as titans, great titan kings, and the powers of light embodied as the devas, the gods, they fight for earth. So not only we human beings fight for a piece of land, it is a very old story, only we fight for the wrong reason, siding more with the powers of darkness, so that I can usurp it and use it for my own good. But here is the powers of light, they also fight for the earth, because earth has something in it which no other plane of consciousness has, and that is the integral truth. In fact, in one of the verses of the Vedas, it says, there are only two planes where we find the complete truth. One is in the Supreme, and the other is upon earth. All that is in between, as we shall see in Savitri, contain one or the other aspect of truth. It does not contain the total truth. It is found either in the Supreme Spirit as self-revealed, or upon earth as self-concealed, but waiting for revelation in infinite ways. It is this view and experience of things and of the truth of existence that enabled me to write the Life Divine and Savitri. So this is the background of Savitri, but it's not just truth that Aurobindo is revealing here. If it's just a question of truth, he could do so in a prose form. In the Life Divine, the truth is revealed, the same truth is revealed. And if it was just simply to express the delight, he could do so in the form of poetry. There are various kinds of poetry where various poetry Aurobindo has written, various poems, where this truth is there. In the Moonlight, Thought the Paraclete, and of course the well-known A God's Labor, where he directly speaks about what is happening upon earth and how the divine is laboring upon earth. A bed for the golden river song, a home for the deathless fire. This is what he wants to build here. But there is something else he wants to pour in the body of Savitri. Not just truth. Truth is there. Not just delight and beauty. It is there in all poetic creation. Not just light, which is there in all that he has written, but also consciousness and force. For indeed, it is the creation of Satchidananda, and therefore every line of Savitri is nothing else but Sat Chit Ananda. It is truth revealed. It is consciousness packed in a body of words and sounds. It is delight, delight after delight, waves after waves of delight, enveloping us into, or drowning us into seas of ecstasy. Savitri is the creation of Satchidananda himself. Earth and the beyond, that is how the poem was conceived earlier. In fact, the very name Aurobindo keeps for this poem is reminiscent of what he is trying to tell us here. He conceives of the poem, in the author's note it is written, a legend and a symbol. Now a legend is a story or a myth. There is a real event around which lot of stories gather. That's a legend. And there is the symbol. Now symbol involves two things. There is something which is physical and something which is invisible. Not just physical, but an idea, perhaps, or a power, of which the symbol is a representative. So the very term a legend and a symbol brings to the forefront what he is trying to tell us. It is about the meeting of earth and heaven. It is about the meeting of the visible and the invisible, about the physical and the supraphysical, the material and the spiritual. In fact, in Savitri, there are as many or perhaps lesser earthly characters and more, if not as many, more non-earthly characters who speak to us. We all know the earthly characters are of course Satyavan and Ashupati and the queen. Dyumatsena is in the background. We hear about him. And there are some sages who speak once in a while, and of course Savitri herself, and we have Narad, the divine mediator, the divine postman or the divine reporter, because he is the one who reports all that happens in the world to the divine. And all that the divine has planned or willed, Narad brings back to the earth. So he does a very good work, something like what the reporters do here. They precipitate things. Things which would have remained hidden would have taken ultimately time. Narada catalyzes, he precipitates. He reports the secret plan of the gods to the Titans. And he reports the plan of the Titans to the gods. They have to just tune in to naradacnn.com, and here are all the reports. And it helps because ultimately he knows that whether I speak or I do not speak, what God has willed will be. And by revealing it, he only precipitates the whole event. So here we find Sri Aurobindo revealing to us a truth. By revealing, why should he reveal? He could have left it in the secret. It's going to take place. But this revelation is so that truth, this truth, which is there in the occult mind of the race, this truth, which has been the secret aspiration in the human heart, this truth, which sleeps as a dream print in the lashes of the Divine Mother, whom no mathematics, no knowledge, no science or art can fathom or touch. This truth, which is hidden in the dust and the stars, this truth, which lies in the heart of the Supreme, is revealed to earth and men so that it can be here and not hereafter. That is why he gives us this revelation. He is not expecting that by getting this revelation we will suddenly ascend to some high plane of consciousness. But by merely putting it in a body of words, by fixing it in the earth consciousness, as Sri Aurobindo would tell us, he makes it possible, at least the body of earth, its sounds, its voices, its language has received this imprint. At least the mind of the race has been stimulated to this great event. At least our hearts are full of hope and expectation and anticipation, sometimes overeager anticipations. We would want this to happen right now. And mother had to tone it down. She said, wait for 1,000 years. When somebody asked for the new race, she said, wait for 1,000 years. And what 1,000 years? We read a line in Savitri where he says, the ancient mother waits through 1,000,000 years. And still, she has not grown weary of her work. She has not grown weary. How can our souls grow weary? What 1,000 years when compared to millions of years we have left behind? In one of his poems, Meditations of Mandavya, beautiful set of poems, one of them Sri Aurobindo writes, I will not faint, O Lord. He voices our anguish. One moves on the path of yoga, starts with very beautiful joy and enthusiasm. The train takes off at full speed. And as one goes further and further, one says, why can't I maintain the same speed? So Sri Aurobindo tells us, for all of us, what should be our attitude? I will not faint, O Lord. I have a thirst, and the thirst presupposes water somewhere. Maybe in this life I may never find. Old nature sits a phantom by the way. It's not so easy to grapple with the old nature. It sits a phantom by the way. The ghost of our past returns and returns. Yet, are there not 100 lives left behind? I shall persist, O Lord, I will not faint. This is the spirit that it inspires to us. That right from the time of the inconscience, that is how Savitri begins. Earth is a symbol of a great experiment. In fact, in front of this experiment, all other experiments fade away. We are told that the best experiment takes place in this university, in Stanford University, and there is a great experiment taking place in Rockefeller and this place and that place. But Earth itself is the field of a great experiment. And what is that a great experiment? Sri Aurobindo would tell us. It's very fascinating. To build immortally with mortal things. To build permanence with transient, perishing stuff. We are told this is the stuff of which our lives are made. A poet has said, what is the stuff of which our lives are made? Transient, perishing stuff. Aurobindo will tell us, yes, this is the clay and mud given to you. This oblivious mud and clay. Something has to be made out of it. An image of the divine, a miniature divinity. You are given transient joys, yes, but can you create bliss within this earth? Can bliss flow through this tissue and nerve and cell? Can our hearts be inspired not with this love which comes today and turns into hatred and bitterness tomorrow, but with a love that can endure death, a love that can challenge and wrestle with hatred and bitterness and death and fall and yet triumph. That is what we are here to build immortality with transient mortal things. This is the experiment going on upon earth, and it's a great privilege that for whatever reasons which divine alone knows, or rather with grace, he picks up the mud and clay of some of us and is willing to mold it, provided we are willing to lend ourselves to this great task. It cannot be done by any human effort. So earth in this poem is a symbol. It's a symbol of a would-be divine creation. It is a symbol of a divine drama, of a divine experiment. But it is also a symbol of the greatest difficulties, just as it is the symbol of the greatest possibility. The greater the difficulty, the greater the possibility. And the mother would explain it in such a simple way. When we read Aurobindo, it appears that he takes us leaping from one mountain top to another. One step on this mountain, the next is on that. And we just wonder, you have leaped like that, how are we to move behind? So the mother comes and she builds small little steps that lead us from this mountain to the other, one step after another, one step after other. So this is the symbol of the earth. So she tells us, if there is only one or two elements, it is so easy to create harmony. If you have 2 or 4 cards, pieces of card, one can create a little card house with them. But if there are 12 cards, it's more difficult. If there are 52 cards or 100 cards, it's much more difficult, but it's much more beautiful than if you were to build just with 2 cards. And that touches the core of the difficulty. Because earth has in itself the integral truth and not just truth in piecemeals. Therefore, we have to build on earth with everything, every piece, every element. Nothing can be left behind. That is why we find in the Puranas, when Devas and the Asura keep fighting, but there is one time when they come together, and that is when they have to discover the secret of immortality. That is the time they have to come together. They cannot afford to be on this side and that side fighting with each other. They come together because immortality cannot come without that. And Aurobindo reveals to us right at the beginning of the previous century, as if inviting us to this great adventure, especially in this land of India, when he says, Mother Durga, give us the force of the Titans, the strength and force of the Titans, the character and intelligence of the gods. Both these poles must come together and unite and work towards building immortality amidst transient perishing things. So this is the difficult task. And when we look at this, the whole perspective changes. Instead of crying when there is pain and suffering, we look at it as a challenge. It's a difficult task given. And who is given a difficult task? But one whom the Divine Mother knows in her wisdom that it is possible. So this is the difficult task given to us, a joy that drags not sorrow at its feet. So this is the symbol of earth, the concentration of all the difficulties and of all the possibilities. And one can extend that India itself is a symbol of all the difficulties and all the possibilities of the earth. We can extend the ashram is a symbol of all the difficulties and all the possibilities of the earth. And we could extend still further, each of us is a symbol of all the difficulties and all the possibilities, which wait as in a seed waits the transcendent for its hour. We are a symbol. Man is a symbol. Mother would put it, man is precisely that symbol, that Y-shaped, through which he links the infinite with the finite. He is the symbol of all the difficulties, and he is also the symbol of all the possibilities. This is the symbol of the earth, which he weaves around the legend of Savitri. Is the passage simple? The Vedas speak about a constant struggle between the forces of light and darkness. And Aurobindo would speak to us, it is a difficult passage. It goes through all kinds of territories and lanes and bylanes, not only beautiful gardens, not only paradise blooms, but also the wrestle with the Titan kings, the great adversaries. And Savitri contains all this description of all this dark and perilous passage. In one of the passages, he says that how even the children of light must come under the dangerous arches of their power, for it is the right of these forces of darkness, and how they must cross that perilous bridge. Nothing helps there. All our intelligence fails. All our intellect, all our reading fails. What helps there? A prayer upon his lips and the great name, for winding through hell turns the heavenward path. And he says, why this is so? Because hell is a shortcut to heaven's gates. What is profound truth? So whenever in life we meet hell, we should just change one letter and turn it into help. Hell is a help. And when we are confronting hell, we should ask for help, because nothing else helps there except the divine grace. And yet that is a necessity of the passage to the beyond and to link it with the earth. And all this starts, this great work starts, as Aurobindo would tell us, and we can read few lines of Savitri. We can come to book 1, canto 1, before we pause for the break. It starts with a dark beginning. This is the beauty of the drama, like a great drama. It starts, the curtains are down, and there is the hush. Everybody is expectant, waiting. What is going to come? We have heard that there is this hero. There is the divine who would walk through this lane. And we are all waiting for that. And the curtain lifts, and there is a darkness. And we are expectant. What is going to come next? And Aurobindo speaks to us that there is this dark beginning of all things. It's not just in earth. Everything starts with this darkness. Later on in Savitri, he would say, all our earth starts with the mud and climbs to the sky. Love that was once an animal's want, and next a hunger in the human heart, becomes a mystic adoration of the One. This is how it starts. It starts from the mud, or even before mud. So here we have, after a few lines, almost in the middle, between the first and the last nothingness, recalling the tenebrous womb from which it came, turned from the insoluble mystery of birth and the tardy process of mortality, and longed to reach its end in vacant naught. As in a dark beginning of all things. Just see, this line is so full of hope. We see darkness and our hearts sink. What is Aurobindo telling us? When you see darkness, see a great beginning. As in a dark beginning of all things, not just of the drama upon earth. We lose hope, we condemn, we simply sign out. This person, he is hopeless, done away for, he has no place. And here is the divine, and here is the earth, which is a symbol of the divine concretized. The Mother Earth holds everyone. She gives birth to everyone. She doesn't say, this is snake hiding in my heart, I am going to kill them all. In fact, she would stop when Janmejay does a Nag Yagya to kill all the snakes. Says, how can you do that? This would upset the balance. These two are my children. She is not just Aditi, she is also Diti, as the mother would tell us, and Aurobindo later on. Not only the white ones, but even the dark gods who leapt from the one in revolt, they too are safe. A mother wisdom holds her and longs to win back these sons who have estranged themselves and moved far from the divine. So what is darkness? It's an estranged child which has wandered away from its home of light. And the mother would be much more worried about such a child than about a child who is just next to her. We all know that very well. A child who is estranged away. That is why divine can forget everything and everyone. If at all he could forget, he has a very good memory. We know from so many examples of the mother. She says, he whom I have seen even for one moment. Of course, this seeing is not just physical seeing. I never forget. She would never forget. So divine would never forget earth, because all the errant and straying energies have come and hid themselves here. As in a dark beginning of all things, a mute, featureless semblance of the unknown. That is how the darkness appears, unknown. Repeating forever the unconscious act, prolonging forever the unseen will. So much like us. We know we should not do this, and yet we keep doing, much like Duryodhana. I know what is dharma, I don't have the pravrati for it. I know what is dharma, but I don't have nivrati from it. Aurobindo would tell us, take courage, take hope. This was the state of the earth when the first drama started. And yet look at it. There is a prayer of the mother where she offers the entire agony of the earth to the Supreme. And then she says, the divine comes and speaks to her. What does he say? Poor, sorrowful earth, do not fear. All your care, all your struggle, all your suffering, all your happiness, I am aware of everything. Hearken to me. Take heed, I come. So here he would say, this is how things begin. Repeating forever the unconscious act, prolonging forever the unseen will. Cradle the cosmic drowse of ignorant force, whose moved creative slumber kindles the suns and carries our lives in its somnambulist whirl. Athwart the vain enormous trance of space, its formless stupor without mind or life. The divine did not give up hope even then, when there was no mind and no life. When somebody asked Aurobindo, in fact he answers this question in the Life Divine. He says, if someone would say, Is the supermind going to come? Is this new creation going to be? It doesn't look like at all. Look at Iraq, look at Afghanistan, look at our next door neighbor, look at America, look at India, look at our elections. Is it really true? So Aurobindo would tell us, if there was a witness of creation, when creation came into being, what would he say? He would ask God, what are you trying to make out of this mud and clay? And he would say, well, wait for a while and you will see this brown earth would be covered with green. Oh, you shall paint it green. I'm paraphrasing the Life Divine. It's not exact quotation. No, life will spring into the heart of rock. Oh, Divine, you make very nice stories. That's why people say that it's all imagination. And he would say, wait, 15 million years. And earth indeed grows green. 15 billion years and the earth grows green. Life springs and crawls and climbs and flies. And if the same witness asked him, what next is your plan? Wait, a self-conscious, thinking creature will emerge. Oh, you mean this plant will think? Yes, this plant will think. You mean this snake has hope? Yes, he has hope. What about this dinosaur? Wait a while, I am going to cut them to the right size. He will turn into a little lizard and carry the evolution. And he waits, and there comes man who lifts the burden of his fate. Aurobindo describes him at several places, inheritor of the brief animal mind, man still a child in nature's mighty hands, in the succession of the moment lives, to a changing present is his narrow right. His memory stares back at a phantom past. The future flees before him as he walks. He sees imagined garments, not a face. He waits to weigh the certitude of his thoughts. He waits to weigh the consequence of his acts, but knows not whether at last he shall survive or perish from this earth, like the mastodon and the sloth where he was king. So he would say, this man, what are you going to do with this creature who doesn't know even the next step in front? And Aurobindo will say, wait, I am going to do something with him. Have patience. What is going to come out of man? That he would tell us in Savitri. But now we have the background stage. It's formless stupor without mind or life, a shadow spinning through a soulless void, thrown back once more into unthinking dreams, earth wheeled, abandoned in the hollow gulfs, forgetful of her spirit and her fate.